Hi folks, this is the brand new 3-rail O-Scale First Union Rail SD40-2 diesel from Lionel, and we're going to check it out today on Eric's Trains. Alright, so this is the box that the SD40-2 comes in when you buy it, and you can see it's got the Lionel quality control sticker up there. They started putting these on their engines lately. So let's go ahead and open the box up, and for today's unboxing I'm going to be using my classic legendary Buck 110. Break the seal. Alright. Oh yeah. Nothing like taking a brand new engine out of the box. It's got a certain smell to it when you first open the packing that is just awesome. It smells like Christmas morning. Alright, so there's the label. First Union SD40-2, road number 3012. I've actually got two of these. I've got 3012 and 3021. So at the end of this review, I'll run both of those together. They're exactly the same, just different road numbers. And you can see the Bluetooth label right there, letting you know that you can run this with your smartphone or tablet using the Lionel Lion Chief app. Alright, and there's the instruction manual that comes with it. Always make sure that you read your instruction manual. There's all sorts of good stuff in there. And there she is. And they've got these straps here that allow you to pull the engine out of the box without damaging it. Like that. And there it is. We've got some packing foam around it, so we'll go ahead and get this off and then get it up on the track. Alright, so with the addition of these two new Lionel FURX SD40-2s, I now have 4 of these in my collection. The previous 2 were made by Atlas many years ago, and the reason I got them to begin with was because I used to live in downtown Atlanta, and I lived in a loft that was adjacent to a rail yard owned by CSX. I believe it's called Halsey Yard. And I would see these FURX diesels in that yard all the time. And so, of course, I was inspired, and so when Atlas came out with their version, I immediately purchased 2 of them, and now all these years later I've got 2 more made by Lionel. So the road name on this unit is FURX, which stands for First Union Rail. However, from time to time you may hear me pronounce it FURX. Now that is not an official term. It's a shorthand that I like to use because it rolls off the tongue easily, a lot easier than First Union Rail or FURX. So if you hear me say FURX every now and then, don't freak out or try to correct me. That's just a shorthand that I use. Anyway, First Union Rail was an equipment leasing company that would lease out locomotives and rail cars to various railroads around the country. And so that's why I would see these in the CSX yard, because CSX was simply leasing the equipment from First Union Rail. Now, a few years ago, I believe First Union Rail was bought out by Wells Fargo Rail, and so the FURX reporting mark, I don't think that's valid anymore. I believe that's been changed to WFRX, Wells Fargo Rail. Now, if the road name is First Union Rail or Wells Fargo Rail, you may wonder, why does it have an X at the end? What's the X for? Well, that X actually has a purpose. When it comes to these reporting marks, the X usually denotes a company that owns rail equipment but is not a railroad themselves. So usually it's a leasing company, and so that's why you have reporting marks like TTX, FURX, WFRX, NAHX, and others. There's a whole bunch of them, and they're all generally leasing companies or companies that have equipment, but they're not railroads themselves. And so You may wonder, well, what about CSX? That ends with an X. Well, actually, the reporting mark for CSX is CSXT, and they put the T on the end to denote that it's a real railroad and not something like TTX or FURX. Obviously, CSX is a real Class 1 railroad, so they couldn't have a reporting mark that ended in X, and so that's why they put the T on there. An interesting side note is that my layout, as many of you may know, is called the Appalachian and Western Railroad, and the reporting mark is AWRX, which means it's a leasing company. And so when and if I finally get around to tagging some of my locomotives and rolling stock with AWRX, that's what it'll be, a leasing company that leases out various equipment to the real railroads. Alright, so before we go any further, let me give you a little bit of history on the real SD40-2. So the SD40-2 is a 3,000 horsepower road switcher diesel electric locomotive built by EMD. The SD40-2 was an improvement over the SD40 with modular electronic control systems similar to those on the experimental DDA-40X. The SD40-2 was introduced in January of 1972 as part of EMD's -2 series, competing against the GEU-30C and the Alco Century 630. Now, although higher horsepower locomotives were available, including EMD's own SD45-2, the reliability and versatility of the 3,000 horsepower SD40-2 made it one of the best-selling models in EMD's history, and by the time production ended in 1989, nearly 4,000 units had been produced. Now, it's been almost 50 years since the SD40-2 made its debut, and most of them are still in service today, which is a testament to their success. Lionel's latest rendition of the SD40-2 that we have here was offered in their 2018 Volume 2 catalog, and these were delivered in late 2019. The length of the engine is right at 16.5 inches. The weight is 5 pounds 3 ounces. This engine has 2 pounds 2 ounces of pulling power, which is pretty good, and the minimum curve needed to operate this engine is 0.54. Lionel made the new SD40-2 in a bunch of different road names. Obviously, they did First Union Rail, but they also did Burlington Northern, Florida East Coast, Milwaukee Road in an orange and black paint scheme, Milwaukee Road in a bicentennial paint scheme, Wheeling and Lake Erie, Sioux Line, Union Pacific, and Wisconsin Southern. And with the exception of the Milwaukee Road bicentennial unit, all road names come in 3 different road numbers. 2 of those road numbers are powered units and 1 is a non-powered unit. Feature-wise, the highlights are going to be 2 flywheel motors, 1 above each truck, a fan-driven smoke unit for the smokestack, all LED lighting, and then you've got legacy command control, legacy rail sounds, and Bluetooth on board. Operationally, you've got several options. Obviously, the preferred way to operate this engine is going to be with the Lionel Legacy Command System, as that will give you access to all of the engine's advanced features. However, you can also run the engine with Lionel's classic TMCC command system. You can run the engine conventionally if you choose to do so, with just a transformer and some track like your granddad used to do, or you can run the engine using the Lionel Lion Chief app on your smartphone or tablet via the Bluetooth connection. Alright, the last thing we're going to do before we start this thing up is BFIMO, best feature in my opinion. Well, my favorite feature on this new SD40-2 is actually the road name itself. Yeah, First Union Rail. It's not a super popular road name, and so I think it's really cool that Lionel actually did it. I would think it would be a safer bet to do stuff like Union Pacific and CSX and so forth, because you know people are probably going to want it. But when you do sort of an off-kilter road name like First Union Rail, well, you just don't know. Are people going to want to buy it or not? Well, I certainly do, because it's just so cool that they actually did it. And not only is it cool, it's also more realistic, because when you look at railroads today, it's not always a name brand railroad that's on the side of the diesel. Oftentimes, it's a leasing company like this. So yeah, I think it's really cool that Lionel did that, and for me, it's the best feature. All right, 3, 2, 1, lift off.
This is the yard office. Do you read me?
Copy that, dispatcher. Over.
Hold for track orders. Over.
Copy that. Ready to start this trip. Out.
let's check out the RPM levels. This one sounds really cool, this level. right, that about wraps it up for this review. I hope you enjoyed it. This new SD40-2 from Lionel is fantastic. It looks great, sounds great, and runs great. There's really nothing to dislike about it at all. So if you're interested in purchasing one of these, the retail price is right at $550. Although if you go through a good Lionel dealer, you should be able to get a decent discount off that retail price. And as always, if you're looking for a good Lionel dealer, try my favorite train store, which is Legacy Station. You can find them on the web at www.legacystation.com or give them a call at 770-339-7780. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time. Hi, I'm Eric Siegel, and today we're going to be checking out nothing. All right, the last thing we're going to do, first thing. All right, the last thing we're going to do before we start this thing up is BFIMO, BBB. All right, let's go ahead and start this thing up. Or not, okay. And finally, here's